5D Mystery School.
So, how much do you know about North America? In my last lecture, Ancient America, I spoke about Lemuria and a little bit about Atlantis. In this lecture, Legends of America, I'm going to speak a little more about Atlantis and some different legends that can help paint a better picture of the past. Now, one more thing about Lemuria before moving on. America-5D is a mythical continent believed to be lost within ancient Tamil civilization, supposedly located south of present-day India in the Indian Ocean. Alternative names and spellings include America-5D and America-Nadu. When the Tamil writers were introduced to the concept of Lemuria in the 1890s, they came up with a Tamilized version of the continent's name. By the early 1900s, they started using Tamil names for the continent to support their depiction of Lemuria as an ancient Tamil civilization. The last sentence says the term America-5D was first used to describe Lemuria in the 1930s. So there you have another story, a myth that points right back to Lemuria. Let's see if I can get this lecture done in about 3 parts. Let's dive deep. Now, it is my belief that Atlantis is located in the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean is the Sea of Atlas. The Atlantis name means the City of Atlas, more specifically close to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, as you know, the Gulf of Mexico is right off of the coast of Louisiana. Now, the Gulf of Mexico is actually the spot for an ancient forest. From Earth Sky, an ancient underwater forest in the Gulf of Mexico. This is from July 24th, 2013. Scientists are exploring a submerged forest of bald cypress trees off the coast of Alabama in the Gulf of Mexico. Hurricane Katrina is thought to have covered it. Earlier in 2013, they announced that the forest is much older than originally thought. An early speculation was that the submerged trees were between 8,000 and 12,000 years old. The newer estimate dates that the submerged trees are from 50,000 to 80,000 years old. A local fisherman first noticed the unusual spot in the Gulf of Mexico a few years ago. He saw that the fish were abundant in the area and speculated that some sort of structure must exist on the seafloor. Fish and other marine life tend to congregate around hard structures beneath the sea, such as coral reefs and sunken ships. And you can see here, these are the stumps, roots, and logs from an ancient bald cypress tree. And you can pause to read his description of these cypress trees. It's an enchanting place. You feel like you are in some sort of fairy world. And pictured here, you can see some cypress trees. North America had a very different climate 50,000 to 80,000 years ago. During that time, a large portion of North America was covered in glaciers, and sea levels were much lower than they are today. Hence, the land off the coast of Alabama was not submerged underwater. And one more source from Live Science, primeval underwater forest discovered in the Gulf of Mexico. The forest contains trees so well preserved that when they are cut, they still smell like fresh cypress sap. Pause to read the top if you want to know more about the dimensions of the trees. In this section, the article tells you about the find. And at the bottom it says, swimming around amidst these stumps and logs, you just feel like you are in this fairy world. These stumps are so big, they are upwards of 2 meters in diameter, the size of trucks. So not only do we have large trees in California, we have them on the East Coast as well. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the location of Poverty Point. Once again, just keep this in your head and you can just see as the river follows the point of Poverty Point all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, okay? And that river also feeds the Arkansas River and every single body of water in the United States. Did ancient Greeks reach America long before Columbus? Plutarch's Life of Solon and Atlantis. Atlantis, the island of Atlas, not the city of Atlas, I'm sorry, had never been mentioned anywhere in the whole world literature until a fictional conversation in Plato's dialogue Timaeus. The character Critias tells Socrates that their discussion had just reminded him about an odd tale that was attested by Solon, who was a friend and relative of Critias' great-grandfather. Plutarch's Life of Solon, written approximately 450 years after Plato, tells us that Solon spent some time in Egypt studying with some highly erudite priests, and that this is where he first heard the story Atlantis, or the Atlantis story. From Neo's Cosmos, Plutarch's writings point to ancient Greek travels to America, says newspaper. In De Fasi, Plutarch, who lived between 46 and 119 AD, records a dialogue between Lambrius and Sylla the Carthaginian. Sylla recounts the story of a traveler who visited the temple of Kronos in Carthage after his return from a long journey to a distant continent. The traveler reveals to Sylla that other travelers would make the journey to the continent every 30 years when the planet Saturn, Kronos in Greek, was in the Taurus constellation. Dr. Loritz's team said that the ancient Greeks may have drawn on their detailed knowledge of astronomy to precisely identify the patterns of Atlantic Ocean currents that would move them westwards toward North America. Plutarch mentions a great continent lying beyond the island of Ogygia, which was 5 days by terrain west of Britain. So the doctor is saying the Greeks came over here for exploration, riches, and religion. And now for a skeptic's view, underwater archaeologist Brendan Foley of the Lund University in Sweden argued that the ancient Greeks did not possess navigational technologies or have the knowledge to navigate the Atlantic Ocean. So it is very possible that the great continent and Atlantis are the same place, which is America, North America. Moving on. Now I really want you to follow this next part. In the Exodus narrative, Yam Suf, or the Reed Sea, sometimes translated as Sea of Reeds, is the body of water which the Israelites crossed following their exodus from Egypt. The same phrase appears in over 20 other places in the Hebrew Bible. This has traditionally been interpreted as referring to the Red Sea. Now, I hope that I don't lose you when I say this, but it is my belief that the Gulf of Mexico and the Red Sea, the Reed Sea, are the same place. Here's why. Reed. In botany, any several species of large aquatic grasses, especially the 4 species constituting the genus Phragmites of the grass family, Poaceae. The common or water reed, Phragmites australis, occurs along the margins of lakes, fens, marshes, and streams of the Arctic to the tropics. Plants of Louisiana, Phragmites australis, common reed. So I wanted to point out that this article came 6 years after the discovery of the underwater cypress trees, and they still wanted to point out that the oldest cypress trees was 2,624 years old, even though the underwater cypress trees was 50,000 years old. So you have to dive a little deep for the truth. Now, from the World History Encyclopedia, Field of Reeds, or Aura. Aura, the field of reeds, was the Egyptian afterlife, an idealized vision of one's life on earth, also known as Sekhet Aura, and translated as the field of reeds. Death was not the end of life, but a transition to another part of one's eternal journey. Now, the Egyptians believed that if you lived in accordance with Ma'at, harmony and balance, that you would have a good afterlife. You would enter into the Hall of Truth and see Osiris, Thoth, and Ma'at standing near the scales of justice, as well as the deities known as the 42 judges who would have significant influence over one's faith. There's 42 again. The field of reeds. Let's read the last part. And if one passed this final test, one would be rowed across the water to the shores of the field of reeds. Now, this is symbolizing that the field of reeds have to do with water. And I believe the Gulf of Mexico is the Reed Sea, the Red Sea. Now, let's take a look at Aztec mythology. Aztec mythology is the body or collection of myths of the Aztec civilization of central Mexico. The Aztecs were Nahuatl-speaking groups living in central Mexico, and much of their mythology is similar to that of their Mesoamerican cultures. According to legend, the various groups who were to become the Aztecs arrived from the north into the Anahuac Valley around Lake Texcoco. Alright, and they're saying this location is in the heart of modern Mexico. In the myth, the ancestors of the Mexica Aztec came from a place in the north called Aztlan to make the journey southward, hence the name Azteca. Other accounts cite their origin in Chicomotztoc, the place of the 7 caves, or at Temoacan, the legendary origin of all civilizations. Quick side note, notice the location of this island in the middle. This is not Mu. This is the Indian myth, right? You see how it says Indian in the middle with a large island in the middle? Well, it's the same place. It's Mu. And this Mu is also known as the legendary origin of all civilizations. You can say that even Atlanteans came from Mu. And keep this in mind for later. Notice the surrounding islands. Another quick side note, a relic from Mu. This is believed to be the oldest jar ever uncovered. It is made of bronze inlaid with gold symbols and was taken from one of Mu's submerged cities. It is estimated to be over 12,500 years old. Aztlan is the ancestral home of the Aztec people. Azteca is the Nahuatl word for people from Aztlan. Historians have speculated about the possible location of Aztlan and tend to place it in either northwestern Mexico or the southwestern United States, although there are doubts about whether the place is purely mythical or represents a historical reality. Of course, that's always the case. Now here's a visual representation of the migration, right, from Aztlan to Mexico. You can see the place with the 7 caves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the big one in the middle. And you can see them crossing over a small body of water. It's only 3 footsteps in the water to symbolize a short journey. This amazing piece of ancient art once decorated the Mayan temple, Mount Tikal. It may portray the events that caused the Maya's ancestors to flee their legendary homeland of Aztlan, Atlantis. It shows a man in a boat escaping from a land that is sunk into the ocean. A drowning man can be seen and a volcano erupts as a pyramid collapses into the water. Now don't forget, amateur archaeologists may have found an ancient city off the coast of St. Bernard. He says, all I know is somebody built a city 12,000 years ago and it stuck out in chandelier. Now St. Bernard is right off the coast, right next to the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, 50 miles east of New Orleans. So in this depiction, you can see a pyramid falling into the water. And there's a pyramid found in that same location. He claims there are large underwater granite mounds near the Chandelier Islands that may have once been the site of the lost city. The source here is Dabu 7. Here's a source, Project Global Water. Legend has it that precisely on May 24, 1065 CE, the Aztecs ventured on an epic migration from their ancestral homeland, Aztlan, place of reeds, to the shores of Lakes Texcoco in central Mexico. So here you can clearly see that Aztlan is referred to as the place of reeds. And again, I want to reiterate, plants of Louisiana is the reed plant. So the Gulf of Mexico is the Reed Sea. And of course, as you may or may not know, the Red Sea appears in the Bible 13 times. I also believe this is related. There's a sunken city lurking beneath the sea in Florida, and it's as eerie as it sounds. Looking at the photos below, you might think the lost city of Atlantis or some other long forgotten underwater ghost town had been discovered, but what you are actually looking at is a memorial site unlike any other. This half-acre city of paved roads, pillars, and statuary can be found 40 feet underwater, about 3 miles off the coast of Florida Keys, Biscayne. And you can just take a look here, Biscayne National Park. You can see how it's close to the Gulf of Mexico, just separated by the statewide landmass of Florida. And here's some photos. The Yucatan's hidden underwater river. There's something fascinating happening at Angeles Sea Note. Scuba divers from across the globe flock to Angeles Sea Note, an underwater cave along the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, to witness an unusual mirage, a river in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. And you can pause to read the rest there. Another reason why I believe that Atlantis is located in North America is this crystal cave in Mexico. And if you know anything about the power of crystals, then you would know how powerful these huge crystals are and what they're capable of. And take a look at the location of that cave. Now here's a visual representation of where the Aztecs say they come from. And from the Smithsonian, see the Gulf of Mexico seafloor like never before. And here is what that looks like. So take a look at this and this. Now you could say it's a stretch, but it could be related. Now, if you had people from Atlantis flee down to Mexico and to Egypt, which is the Louisiana area, then it would make sense because they are in close proximity to each other. Yes, you heard me right. I do believe that North America is ancient Egypt, and here's why. Okay, so as mentioned, the ancient site of Atlantis would have been close to the 33rd degree parallel ley line. Okay, so you can see the similarities between the ancient Egyptians and the Mississippian culture. Just take in the imagery that you see here. You can see there is a great tree. Trees were known as mountains, right? In the middle, and on the top you have a cross, on the bottom you have a cross, and on the very bottom you have the ocean, and then on the bottom of the ocean you have another cross, and on the bottom of the ocean you can see a woman that is enclosed in a circle. There is a firmament on top. You even have stars at the bottom of the water, at the bottom, because the bottom of our ocean is the sky of the realm below, as the bottom of the ocean above is our sky. You have dragons, you have a hand with an eye in the middle, and you can see there is this powder that's going at the bottom of the ocean through the hand. Keep that in mind. So at the bottom, I want you to also notice that there is a firmament at the bottom of the ocean as well. They even made space for Middle Earth there in the middle. You can see there is a animal there in Middle Earth. Moving on. Now, as you can see here, you have a hand with the eye in the middle that's in between dragons, right? The path of souls. And for a quick, interesting side note, early use of the Hamza could be traced to ancient Mesopotamia artifacts and the amulets of the goddess Inanna or Ishtar. The image of the open right hand is also seen in Carthage and in ancient North African and Phoenician colonies. And pause to read a bit about Phoenicians. So that just further adds to my claim that the Phoenicians were here located in North America. Okay, so this imagery, the path of souls. Free soul leaves the body for the west, 4-day journey to the edge of the earth disk, terrifying leap south to the path of souls, the Milky Way. Keep that in mind, the Milky Way, okay? Bridge, river, or light and dog, happiness and contact with relative and rebirth. I really hope this is making sense. If not, then go and watch my lecture, Exit the Matrix, The Sims. Well, just watch them all. Okay, so portals into the underworld or next world. Underworld deities, female genitalia, caves, the path of Orion to the Milky Way. That is really important. Female genitalia, the path of Orion to the Milky Way, portals into the underworld. Female genitalia is the same thing. Now keep this imagery in your mind as we move along. Okay, so here's the imagery as it appears on a stone tablet. Okay, so if you have been enrolled in 5D Mystery School for a while, you should already recognize this imagery. But if not, let me refresh your memory. All right, take a look at this. No words, just take this into your subconscious mind. Take a look at these snakes, the Ouroboros. Now, take a good look at this because at the end of this lecture, this is going to make sense. All of these shapes are pointing to the same thing, and all of these shapes can be found in ancient civilizations, and they were all speaking the same language. You should recognize this from another lecture. This is the Ouroboros represented in Egyptian culture. Okay, so back to the Mississippians. The quincux cross and circle motif. Take a look at all of the shapes here. Again, the Ouroboros and all of these shapes that you see, even the cross, are all pointing to the same thing. It's the same language. Okay, so at the bottom here, you can see where it says 4 corners of the universe, sacred fire, solar symbol. And you can see what it says at the bottom there. Just take a good look at this symbol. All right, again, let these symbols hit your subconscious mind. Just read these with your third eye. All right, so it says underwater serpent, beneath world, water, war symbol on mazes. Now, again, take a look at that. Now, back to this. You see the crosses? Beneath world, water, underwater serpent. That's your key to read those symbols. But we're going to dive deeper with these symbols. Just wait to the end. So this is a tool that they had, right? You can see it was a circle and it had this same symbol at the top of the circle. Okay, so take a really good look at this figurine. Okay, at the top of this man's head, you can see that he has the portal symbol. And you can see the balls on top. Now, these could symbolize the sun and the moon, or the rotation of the sun, because they probably just had the sun back in the day, because there was a time before the moon was here. And finally, you can see he has an arrow symbolizing a direction that he could be going in the afterlife. Now, starts at 3000 BCE at the Great Lakes in the Appalachians. The Mississippians covered a lot of ground. Here's another look at that image so you can see it in color. Notice he has a watch on his wrist just like the Sumerian travelers. And he's on the back of a bird. And you can see how birds are symbolized here. Now here's the Birdman found at Cahokia. It's the same type of imagery symbolizing the same journey of the soul. Cahokia is in Illinois. These spiritual downloads that I get send me into a rabbit hole that requires hours of research, and I know how much work goes into the research, so I just want to give credit to Mike Ruggery for his Mississippian work. Gotta give credit where it's due, man. Mississippian art. The Mississippian were great craftsmen and made great pottery and pots with their skills, often designs from animals or living creatures. Take a look at this. It is a spider. That's important. You'll see why shortly. And as mentioned before, Egyptians do believe in the field of reeds. And I place the Egyptian civilization in Louisiana, and the reed is one of the Louisiana plants, which can be found in the Gulf of Mexico, making that the Reed Sea. Okay, so this comes from EdgarCayce.org. Edgar Cayce was an American psychic who had over 14,000 logged predictions, probably more. The Mound Builders, giant skeletons in the soul's journey to the sky. Edgar Cayce gave 68 readings that in some way related to ancient America's history. Of those 68 readings, a total of 14 directly discussed the mound building culture that was active in America from roughly 3000 BC to historic times. Among Cayce's statements about the mound builders was that the culture actually moved from the south to the north. He also related that the first true mounds were built in the south around 3000 BC. With the injection of those of greater power and their activity in the land during that period, as would be called 3,000 years before the Prince of Peace came, those peoples that were of the lost tribes, a portion came into the land, infusing their activities upon the peoples from Mu, and the southernmost portion of that called America or United States, and then moved on to the activities in Mexico, Yucatan, centralizing that now about the spots where the central of Mexico now stands, or Mexico City. Hence, there arose through the age of a different civilization a mixture again. Those in the Yucatan, those in the adjoining lands as the begun in Iltar, gradually lost in their activities and came to be the people termed in other portions of America the mound builders. Hence, throughout those periods, the entity became then that one that led the first establishing of the activity in the very lands that came to be known as later the Mayan, the Yucatan, the Inca, the Peruvian, and later the mound builders in the northern portions of the Americas. The second generation of Atlanteans who struggled northward from Yucatan, settling in what is now a portion of Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio, became among those of earlier period known as the mound builders. Cayce's readings about the ancient migrations to the Americas are startling and actually are now supported by modern archaeological research. Then the entity was among those who supplied to the peoples the fruits of the soil, learning how to crack corn, wheat, and grain, that it might be prepared into foods through cooking, though much in those periods was taken raw. According to Cayce, the mounds were erected as replicas of the Yucatan, Atlantis, and Gobi experiences. The mounds and earthworks were built by people migrated into the Americas in several waves beginning as long as 50,000 years ago. Now, we spoke about 50,000 years before, and you probably will hear it again before this lecture concludes. Now, this part is important. These waves of people entering into the Americas merged with the tribes already present. Okay, then it goes on to tell you about the earthworks in Newark. All right, this part is important. You might want to go back and watch my lecture, Squaring the Great Circle. One of the key pieces of information that we'll be presenting on the tour is precisely what these ancient people believed about death. Skipping to the end here. A great circle was a magic machine of earth, which was used as a way of pointing souls in the right direction and propelling them into the sky. Another important piece of information, but there actually were numerous skeletons excavated from mounds, indicating that the individuals who were buried ranged from 7 feet to nearly 9 feet in height. Now, when doing research, you will hear about the Lemurians and Atlanteans being giants. So this article is relevant. The giants of ancient Tennessee. The skull was large enough to go over the head of a man of common size. About 10 miles from Sparta, in White County, a conical mound was lately opened, and in the center of it was found a skeleton 8 feet in length. Okay, so I made a little map for you here. You can see at the bottom of the Louisiana coast, that is the Gulf of Mexico, where the pyramid is found, and on the other side of Florida, there is another pyramid. And it's my belief that if you go up north in the Great Lakes, you'll probably find another pyramid. Okay, so at the bottom here, the red line going up shows you their journey because these were nomadic people. So you can see they went past Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, right? And they just kept on venturing. Also down in Florida and Georgia, right? They took that way as well. And I'll show you some articles to substantiate their journey. Aztlan site history. When was Aztlan first discovered? Aztlan was first discovered by Europeans in the fall of 1835 by early Wisconsin Territory settler Timothy Johnson of Watertown. How did Aztlan get its name? It was Judge Heyer who first gave Aztlan its name. The name Aztlan comes from the mistaken idea prevalent in the early 19th century that the site may have been the northern place of origin of the Aztecs of Mexico, as mentioned in their legends and oral traditions. Judge Heyer related Aztlan to the Aztecs based on the resemblance he saw between its mounds and the Aztec pyramids. Humboldt stated that the Aztecs' original homeland was to the north and was called Aztlan. Now keep this map in mind. Mound Bottom State Archaeological Area, Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. Mound Bottom State Archaeological Area is an ancient Native American mound center in Cheatham County, Tennessee that dates to the Mississippian period of regional prehistory. Kentucky history! I don't know why I said it like that. Indian mounds in Kentucky. Now they are crediting these Indian mounds to the Adena culture. This could be true, or it could also just be the Mississippians. Because like I said, don't forget this map. Monk's Mound is the largest pre-Columbian earthwork in the Americas and the largest pyramid north of the Mesoamerica. The beginning of its construction dates from 900 to 955 CE, located at the Cahokia UNESCO World Heritage Site near Collinsville, Illinois. Cahokia Mound State Historic Site, this one is in St. Louis, Missouri. Researchers locate hidden ancient burial mounds. This one is in Iowa. You can pause to read that thing. Mound builders in Michigan. Hey, what up, though? Yes, that's right. Mound builders in Michigan because they were trying to get to the Great Lakes. Okay, something I wanted to point out from this article. I wanted to talk a little bit about their presence in the Midwest, specifically Michigan. It should be noted that their mounds are also present in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. They are believed to be the first people to inhabit the lower peninsula of Michigan. One Ottawa Native American describes his fear of the mounds. Now, Native Canadians is a whole nother lecture. Global news. Strange things out there inside Lake Ontario's Bermuda Triangle. Pause to read. Boy, they did some traveling. Little Egypt site was an archaeological site located in Murray County, Georgia. The site originally had 3 platform mounds surrounding a plaza in a large village area. It was destroyed during the construction of the dam of Carter's Lake in 1972. Go figure. And at the bottom, you can see they credit this to the Mississippians. Coincidence? Egypt and Mississippian connection there? Now you can see it was located in the southeast, or today, since everything's inverted, you would call that going northwest. So you can see it was right at the edge of their travels. Why is southern Illinois called Little Egypt? Discover Egypt in southern Illinois. This comes from the Budget Savvy Traveler. Whilst exploring southern Illinois, you will begin to notice all of the references and correlations to Egypt surrounding the region. So I'm just briefly touching on all of these locations as I move along. Plum Bayou Mounds Archaeological State Park, formerly known as Totec Mounds Archaeological State Park, also known as, you can see the rest, it's an archaeological site from the late Woodlawn period in Arkansas that protects an 18-mile complex with the tallest surviving prehistoric mounds in Arkansas. Now, take a look at this. Does this look familiar? Take a good look. You probably already got it. Now, at first glance, you probably thought that was Poverty Point because they are identical. Look at Poverty Point. I mean, really look at it. All right, take it in. Now, Plum Bayou. Moving on. The pyramid-shaped earthwork in Arkansas that still baffles archaeologists to this day. This ancient earthwork holds secrets of a time long gone, and with very little excavation, these secrets have remained hidden. All right, located in Red River Basin in Lafayette County, the Battle Mound is the largest earthwork constructed by the Cadonian Mississippian people. So you can see the Mississippians had different sectors. Okay, so you can have a group of people like black people in America, even though we're wrongly labeled African Americans, right? We're natives to this land, but you have people that come from Atlanta, Los Angeles, Detroit, right? We're the same group of people, but we come from different areas. Well, all skin folk ancient. Well, you know how it goes. Anyway, it's the same with the Mississippians. Approximately 650 feet long, 300 feet wide, and 31 feet in height. This ancient structure is the length of 2 football fields. Additionally, it has 3 platforms and is said to be one of the largest pyramid-shaped structures in the southern United States. Dates back to 1200 AD. And of course, the AD stands for Anno Domini, which I talked about in other lectures. Here you have Pyramid Mound that's found in Indiana. And take a look at the bottom there. Archaeologists have found prehistoric rock structures under the Great Lakes. Here's what the stones can tell us. You can see they call it a Stonehenge-like structure under Lake Michigan, although there's no hinge to the structure and is V-shaped. The real underwater stone sensation lies 120 feet below neighboring Lake Huron, an area the size of a football field with dozens of 9,000-year-old artifacts and human-built stone structures that comprise the most complex prehistoric hunting structure ever found beneath the Great Lakes. It's a Pompeii type situation. Everything is totally preserved in cold, clear, fresh water. You don't get that often in archaeology. These underwater antiquities give us a glimpse of how prehistoric humans communities work together to find meat. Michigan, we have the meats. Don't make fun of me, I just had to do it. It's really exciting because it's the earliest signs of occupation. And I thought this last part was a gem. You need to produce the receipts to convince people that what you have is real. Especially if you're working underwater where most people can't go. Yes, you're going to find these mounds all over the United States. This is our history. This is how we honored the journey of the soul. Now, why do the mounds look the way they do? Just take a good look at this. A circle with the great mound in the center, usually near bodies of water. Go check out your local mound. Tap into that ancient history. You can even see the stories from the tribes that came after the flood of Atlantis and Lemuria. Just take a good look at these symbols, right? The portal. Take a real good look. Read this with your third eye, because it's a language you have to read. So the new settlers, like the Navajo and the Hopi, they had their own legends. They all spoke about the same, right? The marrying of the sky and the earth. the circling of the sun, and the great deep below us. The Navajo speak of the spider woman, right, who was sent down to create civilizations. I'm not talking about your modern marvel. I'm talking about modern marvels. Bars. World's largest underwater cave discovered. Explore the world's largest underwater cave. Now, this underwater cave has been discovered near the city of Tulum on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The new discovery connects two previously known flooded caves. Now, that's 3 caves that they have found. Now, remember, the Aztecs said that they came from the place of the 7 caves. All right? This immense cave represents the most important submerged archaeological site in the world, since it has more than 100 archaeological contexts, among which is evidence of the first settlers of America, as well as the extinct fauna and, of course, of the Maya culture, says Guillermo de Anda. Important side note, North America had a very different climate 50,000 to 80,000 years ago. During that time, a large portion of North America was covered in glaciers and sea levels were much lower than they are today. Hence, the land off the coast of Alabama was not submerged underwater. Now, I want you to really look at this pyramid. This whole pyramid is telling a story. Take a look at the top. Take a look at the doorways on each side, and each doorway has a section that comes down. Those are representing something, the center and the 4 directions. Keep that in mind for the end of this lecture and the next lecture. Most of these pyramids and these ancient sites, they are all telling you the same story. Let's dive deeper. I'm not sure if you can see this or read this, but I'm going to read it for you. Deep inside an underwater cave in Mexico, archaeologists may have discovered the oldest human skeleton ever found in the Americas. Dubbed Eva de Naharan, the female skeleton has been dated at 13,600 years old. If the age is accurate, the skeleton, along with 3 others found in underwater caves along the Caribbean coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, could provide new clues to how America were first populated. The remains have been excavated over the past 4 years near the town of Tulum, about 80 miles southwest of Cancun. There's Tulum again. We don't know how the people whose remains were found in the caves arrived and whether they came from the Atlantic, the jungle, or inside the continent, Gonzalez said, but we believe these finds are the oldest yet to be found in the Americas and may influence our theories of how the first people arrived. In addition to possibly altering the timeline of human settlement in the Americas, the remains may cause experts to rethink where the first Americans came from, Gonzalez said. The shape of the skulls has led us to believe that Eva and the others have more of an affinity with people from South Asia. Side note, in another entrance to a deeper rabbit hole, here's an Olmec head. Take a look at the face. Now, the Olmecian civilization added to the original peoples of the Polynesian islands, here Afro-Polynesians. 19th century painting of a Brazilian woman. Did you remember the map? Not only did they go north, they also went south, class. Now, there are a lot of theories about how the different races came to be. Again, go check out my lecture, Lost History. But at the start of most of these civilizations, you can see a common theme of melanated original peoples. These are not my opinions, these are just facts. These are Incan noblemen found in Peru. Photo of a girl from Lima. More Incan emperors. Your eyes are not deceiving you. These are the legends of America, North and South. Here is a native Peruvian man. Here is a native Paleo-American man of South America. Now, if I were to ask you, where does this girl come from? Would you be able to tell me? Exactly the point. This is a native Brazilian girl. Machu Picchu is the home of the Incans in Peru. A painting in the Larco Museum in Lima, Peru. This painting depicts the Incan emperors and the subsequent European emperors of the Inca. Okay, so one thing that I find in my research time and time again, and of course this is non-biased, is that the origins of most civilizations, the natives of the land, look something like this. That goes for South America, North America, Asia, so forth and so on. Okay, so I thought this was relevant from Mooker Free Energy Research. Amongst its notable features, Humboldt's map preserves the tradition that the Aztecs migrated into Mexico from the land of Aztlan, a mysterious place which the Spanish thought was located near the Great Salt Lake in modern-day Utah. Now, that's not my belief, because don't forget, that's not the only Great Salt Lake. Now, I'm only going to replay this video so that you can really listen to what this man is saying. Rest in peace to him, by the way.
Without a doubt, one of the most amazing things that I had ever seen in the bottom of the ocean. It was while filming for Blue Planet in the Gulf of Mexico. And I noticed there's something out in the distance. Couldn't tell exactly what, but it looked like a dark band. And as we approached it, the dark band became a donut. I saw this donut that was black in the center. What the heck is that? And so as we get closer and closer to it, I noticed that the black band had what appeared to be kind of steam over it. And then I looked, and there was water lapping against the shoreline. This band was a ring of mussels. And inside the ring of mussels was a lake. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm already underwater. We went out over the water in this lake and tried to descend in it and bounced off. It was so super saline and dense that the submarine couldn't go down in it. We literally bounced off, and as we bounced off, we said...
Now, remember, also in that same area in the Gulf of Mexico, a 50,000-year-old cypress tree forest was found. So those trees used to sit on dry land, and that Great Salt Lake was the lake near this forest. Now, before moving on and coming to a conclusion, I want to revisit something to just show you how easy it is to fool you in an indoctrination system. I told you that this girl was from Brazil. You probably bought it and you think she's from Brazil. Now, what if I told you she could be from South Africa or Germany, or you pick a place? That's the point. Do you know where this person is from? Or them? Or this one? You see, you have to ask yourself, should I unlearn what I have been taught to actually see the truth in the real history of this world? Because if you find that the natives of these lands look like this, and you see that not only were the natives populated in North America, but in South America, Peru being one of the places, you have to start to realize that this is how the native Peruvians looked. There's a black Abkhazian tribesman circa 1800s. Here's some Assyrian art in color. And you see a lot of the DNA manipulation and the whitening of societies was intentional. For community guideline reasons, I can only go so far with this topic, but let's just say the truth will always find a way to the light. Moving on. Legends America Part 15, the conclusion. Quetzalcoatl from Britannica. Quetzalcoatl, Mayan name Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, one of the major deities of the ancient Mexican pantheon. Now, every ancient civilization has their pantheon of gods, and all of these gods are all symbolic, telling the same story. Quetzalcoatl seems to have been conceived as a vegetation god, an earth and water deity closely associated with rain god Tlaloc. Take a really good look at what you are seeing. Notice what's above his head, notice what's on his face, what's in his hand, notice the bird. Now that seems eerily familiar to the Mississippian figure as well. Here, how about I paint a better picture? Here you can see Quetzalcoatl eating somebody. Now this is symbolic. We'll get to that in 1 second. Take a real good look at this imagery right here. Back to the Mississippian culture, right? You have the snakes or the dragons circling with the hand and the eye in the center, also known in other cultures as the Hamza. Okay, let's go back to this symbol. Now back to the Ouroboros. Look at this with your third eye. As above, so below. Now think of your kundalini. Think of the process of your cerebral spinal fluid as it goes up and down your kundalini. Back to the ancient Egyptians, the Ouroboros. Now you can see this great tree in so many different ancient civilizations. At the bottom of the tree, you can often see the snake circling, representing the Ouroboros. The Tao also symbolizes the same thing. To really understand and overstand, I would implore you to go and watch my lecture, Exit the Matrix, The Sims. Now, where did the first peoples come from before they got to Mu? From Desert News, researchers say Aztec homeland was in Utah. Aztec legends holds that their forefathers migrated to Mexico City from a land to the north. Emphasis on north, a land of red rocks and 4 rivers. Now, I'm not sure about the red rocks part, but I can tell you that here in the center on the Mercator map is the Rupas Nigra, the great black rock, the tall black rock, and it's surrounded by these 4 rivers. Now, take a good look at this. Most of these ancient sites are paying homage to one great site, with the great mound in the middle surrounded with this circular enclosure. Take a really good look. Now, you remember this portal into the underworld? Do you remember this imagery, the path of souls? Before we get out of here, here is a 19th century Aztec couple. Peep the hair. Although many different ancient civilizations have their origins spanning from the same place, we do know that there was a great flood and the survivors had to span out to the surrounding lands. One of the closest lands was North America. They travel, they build mounds, and they leave traces of themselves wherever they go. For example, the artifacts in New Lenox turned out to be part of an entire ancient Native American village occupied by people who had been migrating along Hickory Creek. And of course, that's just one of the stories, and you can see that they always build and travel along the water line. And since they all come from the same place, they all tell the same stories in just different versions of it. And the story that they're telling is all the same. It's the journey of souls. And the relics that they leave behind is to keep that story and pass it down through their generations. As you can see, the portal on top, the Hamza hand on the bottom, representing rebirth. The terrifying leap south to the path of souls, to the Milky Way, river of light, and dog. What does this all mean, right? Contact with a relative and rebirth. So people who had near-death experiences often speak about being visited by their relatives. Nurses often say that when they're in the room with somebody that's about to leave, the person in the bed said that they can see their relative. And the dog reference could be a reference to Sirius, the dog star. And the Milky Way, the path of souls and the river of light, well, that's a reference to the Aurora Borealis. You have the Aurora Borealis and the Aurora Australis. The river of light, the path of souls, the Milky Way. Think of that term, right? The Milky Way. Now, in another lecture, I said that I intuitively feel like our Aurora Borealis that we see in the sky is the highway for souls. And it can only be seen in the Arctic region. And you know what else is in the Arctic region? It's a place that you've been hearing about for a very long time, just through very different stories and symbols. But as above, so below, just how you have to hold that baby in your womb to bring that baby through to birth, that baby has to go through the womb and experience rebirth first. So if you dig deep enough, you will find the same story all throughout this ancient land. So again, I ask you, how much do you know about North America? Thanks for watching Legends of America with 5D Mystery School. Take care. I love you. Peace.
5D Mystery School.